Hey, Brian Crum here, and I'm so glad that you're watching this content because if you're viewing this, it means you've purchased a copy of Neighbor Love Yourself. That's just incredibly humbling and exciting to me because you're going to love this. This is a book that's going to help you feel good about you. And I think that's just an amazing mission that we're on now is to help people fall in love with God's greatest creation, that's us. And when I thought about that idea and welcoming these words to the world, I thought there's a guy that could help us do that really, really well because he's been doing that for me for years. I was just chatting with Mark Batterson here and saying to him that this is our first time conversing in the same room. But
Yeah.
you've been talking to me for a while because I've been reading the words you're pushing out into the world. And I really think me writing this book is just kind of another car on the tracks here of this train that's rolling, because this wouldn't exist certainly without some of the things that you've planted inside of me with your words. So
Well, Brian, I'm so excited, and I feel like I've got the uncorrected proof in my hands, and I've already had the chance to read a little bit and read enough that I can't wait to read the whole thing. You know what I'm reminded of? Emily Dickinson said, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." And I feel like this book is going to be one of those kind of, in our mutual friend Bob Goff's language, turn your head slightly to the left. I can already tell it's going to be one of those kind of books. So I am so excited just to have a short convo about it.
I appreciate that. I'm just thinking through this because Jesus tells us to love the people around us, but he actually assumes that the standard we'll use for that is how much we love ourselves. And I discovered I worked for years as a hospice chaplain, and I have found firsthand that too many of us end our life story not loving the story, not loving ourselves, and that is not what Jesus wants for us. So here we are with these words. We've put together some stories. And I guess a question for you, Mark, is why do you think Jesus picked that as the standard? I mean, why didn't he say, let's love each other like we love chocolate or children or, pick something? But he doesn't. He says, ourselves. That's crazy, right?
It is crazy. And like if you don't like yourself, it's going to be hard to love others, right? And so I think sometimes people think about the great commandment as being two-dimensional. Love God, love people. But it's that key component, that third dimension, which is what you're diving into, that you're only going to love people as effectively as you care for yourself, as you and it's not some like, hey, look at me. It's a theology of dignity that we are created in the Imago Dei. And that's where our value comes from. And so I think it's spot on. And Brian, one of the things that we say here quite a bit is there never has been, never will be anyone like you, but that's not a testament to you. It's a testament to the God who created you. And I think that shifts the conversation just a little bit.
Yeah, it feels egotistical to our earthly ears is what I keep referring to them as, but really it's not. It's what Jesus intended for us.
Yeah.
And a lot of this book talks about how we uncover those talents and those skills and that value inside ourselves that we just either have taken for granted or don't realize it exists. And so it's kind of like an expedition, an internal expedition in ourselves, pushing away that dust and dirt and finding that treasure. So, and I don't know if you've had experiences like that where you found a talent you thought, I didn't know I possessed this, or this is something is new to me, but here I go.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking about, Brian, is just I think a good book is a mirror that forces you to almost look at yourself, but look a little bit more closely, a little bit differently, almost see yourself in a slightly different light. That a great book, I think, produces a level of self-awareness. And I feel like as I look at even the table of contents, I start getting excited um, to just, well, I am curious now. Mirrors are not standard issue. Chapter 11. Now I'm really curious about that chapter. But I think getting to know ourselves, I think it was Franz Kafka who said a good book is an axe that, and this is a paraphrase, that is a pickaxe for frozen ice. That there's something about a great book that unlocks our ability to see ourselves a little bit differently. And it seems like, is that fair to say that that's kind of some of the heartbeat in terms of writing the book?
Yeah, for sure. And your pickaxe makes me think, because part of the conversation in the book is about carving out some time. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I call it carving out time with our alarm clocks. Sometimes you've got to take a pickaxe on a good expedition for the harder ground. The harder ground for me is the alarm clock. I don't know if you're an early riser or not. I know you might do some writing in the mornings.
Yeah.
But it takes a little time for me to get going, and sometimes we need to do some carving in our schedules to get that time with our Creator, so we can discover some of the things that really He's placed inside of ourselves.
Yeah. You ever notice that little passage where it says David went in and sat before the Lord? And because this conversation is totally unscripted, I can't pull the reference.
Right.
But it says he went in and sat before the Lord, and he asked the question, "Who am I?" And I think maybe that's a good question to kind of frame as people pick this up and go chapter by chapter. I hope and pray there's kind of a rediscovery or a revelation of more of who we are in that process.
Absolutely. I know you've got a philosophy about seasons. That's kind of woven into some of the words that you've shared in your books. A season for writing, a season for refilling your own bucket so that you can be, effective at refilling those around you. And I don't know if you could share just a second about your philosophy about that, seasons in life, because I think there's something in these words that speaks to, before you can love others, you've got to fill yourself first, and I think in our world, we're so busy, we're so spread thin, we often just find fault in ourselves because we're not effective with the people around us.
Yep.
But it's really because we've short-circuited our capacity to care. We've short-circuited our own level of love.
Yeah. Well, I've often prayed, Brian, I prayed this prayer: Lord, don't let my gifts take me where my character can't sustain me. And character is generally cultivated in the crucible. You need to experience failure. You need to go through tough times. You need to pay the price. There are no shortcuts. There are no cheat codes. And it's not lost on me that Jesus, only about 3 years of public ministry is our best guess if you kind of reverse engineer it. But he was at least guessing 30 before he even went into any kind of public ministry. So that, like, ministry was 10%, and the vast majority, and even when he felt called into ministry, he's going to spend the first 40 days in the middle of nowhere with no one. But that's where I think we've got to do the hard work of, there are seasons to do self-work, self-care. we underestimate elite athletes are good at rest and recovery.
Yeah,
And we're not very good at that. So we're just not good at taking care of
you're
ourselves.
right.
And so I think there is something, there are seasons, and the Lord even said this to, I think it was to Elijah at one point, go hide thyself. And we tend to seek the limelight. We want 15 minutes of fame. We want our moment on stage.
Yeah.
No. That don't seek opportunity, seek God, and opportunity will seek you. And so those are kind of some of the thoughts that surface. But maybe this book is for those who find themselves in a season where they either have to discover or rediscover who it is that God's created them to be.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And my escape sometimes is nature. You know, I think you do a lot of hiking, at least I've read.
Yeah.
And, I have a quote in the book that just says, nature isn't necessarily the answer to our problems, but it's a great place to find solutions. It's a great place to find answers to those. And there's a lot of that in there too. Getting out and finding these areas and places where you can have this time and place to discover some of the things that God is working on inside of you and uncovering inside of you. So.
I love that. There is something about, you discover something about yourself when you're in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of nature. And I think sometimes if we lose touch with nature, we lose touch with nature's God.
Very true. So our friend Bob, you know, he does this crazy thing where he writes a book and then all the proceeds, we might as well just give them away, right?
Come on.
And the dollars go to build these schools. Well, you know, here I'm trying to follow in these giant footsteps. I'm trying to follow in Bob footsteps and Mark footsteps, and they're big footprints. So, but we're trying. And so the proceeds for this book will go to help teens in the foster system. So if you're joining the mission by purchasing this book, guess what? You're helping yourself. There's so much inside these covers to help you, but in the process, you're helping others too. You're helping teens in the foster system. So I've been telling folks, don't buy a book, buy two. And the reason is, this is a perfect gift for somebody that's your neighbor, somebody that's down the street, or somebody that's in your life group that needs a pick-me-up. This is a perfect thing for you, for them, and then ultimately for teens in the foster system. So trying to just pour some good gasoline on this great fire that's burning out there and keep it going. So,
man, Brian, I love that. And that sounds like James 1, pure religion, widows, orphans, and a heart that's bigger than just selling a book here and there. In fact, I might even say iron sharpens iron. So books are best read in community. And so maybe not just one for yourself and one more, but maybe a small group or a group of friends might be a great exercise to just rediscover yourself in community with each other. And man, I'm so excited about this book. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
No small task pulling off a book, getting it in print. And we were just sharing before that a book is kind of like pulling your heart out of your chest and putting it out there for the rest of the world. But just on behalf of those of us who are the beneficiaries, thanks for the courage to write this book, and excited to see how God uses it.
Thanks for that. And thanks for your words. It just wouldn't exist without things you've written in the past and things you're still writing. So appreciate you and all that you're pouring in. You certainly know the work that goes into one of these books. So nice to chat with you today. And thanks for just a chance to tell others that this is something that will be good for them too. So
yeah, love it.
Appreciate it.
God bless.
Thank you.